Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. Welcome to our weekly discussion of the latest developments in clean energy and transportation. This week, Tesla lobbies for taxes on gas cars. Tony Seba with RethinkX has a new study that will make you mad. And Volkswagen holds its version of Tesla Battery Day. UK homes could be heated with microwaves. New battery plant coming to Quebec, Canada. And the Yukon. Late-breaking news from the Yukon. The Yukon has rebates for electric motorcycles, snowmobiles, and yes, Brian, ebikes. You're going to like that. How are you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
No vaccine yet for you?
No, but it's getting down there. It's down to age 60 now in our city, so I'm getting close.
Oh, you're going to be before me. I envy your old age for once. It's the only time I've ever envied people older than me.
It seldom comes in handy being old, but yes.
So are you monitoring the Twitter feeds of the Public Health Agency to see if there's any, leftover vaccine or something that you might rush down and get? Because that's where I am.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but that's an excellent idea.
Oh, now I've given everyone else the idea. And it's competitive. It's a Mad Max world out there. I want my vaccine. I'm hoping that people, this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm hoping that people fear the vaccine initially and let me get it first because I don't want to die.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe that's why, because it seems to be going down quite quickly in age. Like, I'm really surprised they're down to age 60, and I thought, maybe it's because nobody wants it.
I think it's because nobody knew. I think those 60-year-olds weren't following Twitter, but now the word has got around, and now there's huge lineups that last 6 hours. So for car drive-through testing. So I'm hoping it gets to me sooner than later. I'm hoping there's extra vaccines around, and because the variant is spreading in our city, and we're kind of an outlier. We're doing terrible right now, apparently.
Yeah, we're a real hot spot, but that's one of the reasons we're getting the vaccine a bit sooner than other people is rather than have a lockdown, they appear to just be funneling more vaccines at our city and hoping that'll do the trick.
Yeah, so I've got 2 kids in school, one in high school. And my wife's a social worker who actually deals with clients. And so I'm nervous. I'm nervous that somebody's going to bring it home because it spreads so much easier. Are you at risk at your place down in the bomb shelter?
Yeah, well, my son is going to high school, so, it is a bit risky. But yeah, we're so close to the end of this.
That's what bothers me. We're so close.
I know.
It's when you get close. I read about people who are dying. People in their 30s or 20s. Somebody was under 20, I think, in their teens, and people younger than me. And then you think, well, we're so close.
We're so close.
Will our podcast change once we have vaccines? Will the cloud lift from the world? Will we be more positive? I think we're a positive podcast as it is because we're always giving good news to people.
There's tons of good news in clean energy. It's crazy. It's getting too full. We got too much to talk about.
Brian, I have an update on my Canadian Tire wheel cover story from last week. I know people were following this very closely, and we took the car. My wife had a flat tire at work. We nervously drove it to work through 2 train tracks, took the long way, got to work. She was not impressed when she heard our podcast, me talking about it. Anyway, we got it there, and then there was only three hubcaps, 3 hub wheel covers, and they looked at the video. They did extensive things. They were looking at different videos, even one from the gas station across the lot. And then my wife looked through her pictures the other day, and her and my daughter went for a walk, and there was the car pre-flat tire with missing a wheel hub. So we had photographic evidence that we are idiots, which we don't really need photographic evidence for that, but so the mystery solved. Canadian Tire, I do apologize. They were not impressed when my wife phoned and explained things. They basically hung up on her. Yeah, so Brian, you have a story about AirPods. What's going on with your AirPods?
Yeah, this is a good news story. So I bought these Apple AirPods at the start of the pandemic because they're good for teaching. It's good to have headphones for Zoom, but these are nice and tiny. But the problem with Apple AirPods is that they're too tiny, and I use them for the podcast as well. So I stick one in one ear and I listen to you on Skype as we're in different locations, so that they work well for that too. And They're a very low latency Bluetooth headphone. It's this, the reason I got one. But at the beginning of February, I had an appointment somewhere in the city, like on Bmw Avenue, and I was wearing the AirPods, and it was back in the cold snap, so it was, minus 35, minus 40 degrees, colder with wind chill. And I was walking out to my car, and I was wearing a mask because I'd been inside somewhere. And I thought, well, I'm getting to the car. I think I can take my mask off now. And I did that. And then I got in the car and realized that one of my AirPods must have popped out when I took my mask off. And this is in freshly fallen snow.
Oh, God.
At, minus 35 degrees. And these AirPods are tiny and they're white. So they're not the thing you want to lose in the snow. And so I went back out and looked for it, could not find it. It was minus 35. It's like, I guess, I got to go. I actually went back an hour later because I had a bit more time. And they'd actually swept the sidewalk, which never happens. Like our sidewalks are never cleared of snow. And the one sidewalk where I'm looking for my AirPod
got swept.
And it had been swept. Anyway, I spent another 5 minutes or so, minus 40, trying to find the AirPod.
Really?
I tried to connect to it because if you can connect to them by Bluetooth,
right,
you can actually get it to make a sound.
Oh, really?
And you might be able to find it that way.
Oh.
But it wouldn't connect. And anyway, I gave up. So 3 weeks passed. It warmed up. Some snow melted. I went out there and I found it.
How?
It was sitting there beside the sidewalk.
Get out of town.
3 weeks later, found it. And charged it up and works fine. That's
incredible. You're lucky. You should buy a lottery ticket. That's stupid. That doesn't happen. That does not happen. Why?
I thought it was possible just because, if some snow melts and I get to it, before a dog eats it. And
but
totally
usually the dog would eat it.
Totally.
Because they would smell your earwax, go, oh, I need a bit of that.
The dog almost ate it in my house because it popped out of my ear and hit the floor, and I had to rush for it before the dog could eat it.
Okay, so what's on Bmw Avenue that they got swept? Because we're talking about these little machines with the rotating bristles that go around really fast that clean winter sidewalks here. So
basically the only sidewalks in our city that get cleaned are the ones that have a bunch of apartment buildings. So I think it's just the owners of the apartment complexes take it upon themselves to sweep the sidewalks. So there's a bunch of like condos and apartments on that street. So it would have been those people.
Why couldn't you connect to it instantly though? I know it was really cold.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't close enough. Maybe, I don't know. They have detectors on them, like they're supposed to detect when they're in your ear, and sometimes they won't connect because the detector, it's all very confusing. But it was minus 40, so I just couldn't spend any more time trying to make it work.
But how much are they
to buy?
Yeah,
it's around $350 Canadian for a pair.
That's a lot of money, Brian.
Well, that's why I went back to look for it.
I wouldn't leave home with $350 AirPods. I would just have them in my house. I'd have a cheaper pair for leaving home. This is a nightmare, and you got so lucky. I don't know. I think you should quit the show. Yeah,
and I actually normally wasn't wearing them outside of the house. It's sort of a long story where I have other headphones, but I couldn't use them that day for various reasons.
All right, Brian. I want to talk about Elon Musk. Let's get started with Elon Musk, if you don't mind. Elon Musk, cray or slay. This is our occasional segment, Elon Musk, crazy or slay. So, Elon officially gives himself the joke title of Technoking at Tesla, and the CFO becomes master of coin. Your thoughts, slay or cray?
It's weird to make jokes in a, $700 billion company, but it's, I don't know, it's just a silly joke.
Do you lose faith when he does something like that? Do you get a little nervous? Do you start counting your Tesla stock and wondering if you're going to keep it or not?
No, I don't think so. It's par for the course for him. I mean, it's certainly he's done much worse things.
All right. So Volkswagen has held its power day, which is kind of like the battery day that Tesla had, talking about how they are going to source batteries, what they're going to, how much are they going to cost. how many giant factories they're going to build. And the plan is for 6 new gigafactories. Everybody's calling their factories gigafactories now. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Is that cool with you? I mean, they're stealing Tesla. This just means a big factory, right?
Well, I think Tesla's moving on to terafactory because they're going bigger than giga.
So giga is like the output of the gigawatt hours. So they're talking about 240 gigawatt hours of battery capacity by 2030, and they're going to secure 240 gigawatts of power. Were you impressed with Battery Day?
Well, it was better than nothing. I mean, they're doing more than any other legacy automaker, and it is a little bit of a copycat of the Tesla Battery Day. But since Tesla's put out such a good roadmap, I think if you're going to copy somebody, it makes sense to copy them. So it was kind of like Tesla Battery Day Light. They just didn't go as far because they still have to phase out all of their gasoline and diesel engines. And, 240 gigawatts by 2030 is probably not enough. That should probably have been a lot higher.
So they're coming in light still. People saw this as a bit of a recommitment that they were talking 35% market in Europe by 2030. Now they're upping that to 70%, I think. 70% of their vehicles will be EVs by 2030. Is that encouraging, or is it just not enough?
I don't know. It's probably just not enough. Like, I think Tesla's target for 2030 is 3 terawatt hours of battery production.
Yeah.
So, 240 gigawatts. I mean, it's going to be difficult for anybody to move that quickly anyway. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's the best they can do, but
not good enough.
It just makes you wonder about the other automakers who have announced, very little or next to nothing.
Now, I know GM has announced they're going all in on EVs in the 2030s, and they are building battery factories, but it really takes a lot of factories to get these batteries going. In fact, the consensus is that the only thing that's going to hold this up is getting the mines online, because you can't get a mine online that quickly. I've heard 2 years as a minimum, but with the investment there, you want to put money after something that's expanding. So I think people will be more confident in investing in mines and getting those mines going. VW is betting on a mix of in-house production and suppliers. I guess you could say Tesla is doing that too, but it's mostly in-house. And in North America, the group is continuing its effort through Electrify America and Electrify Canada, who are planning around 3,500 fast charging points by the end of the year, which is a lot. I find fast charging points, the easiest thing to do, don't you? I mean, it's a lot easier to build a charging station than it is a battery gigafactory.
No, and Tesla certainly proved that, going in so early with such a massive network, which, seemed at the time like a huge risk to me. Like, they were such a small company when they started building charging stations literally all over the world. And you would think, man, wouldn't that in itself just bankrupt them? But maybe it doesn't cost that much. You just got to lease some land, put up some chargers. It's not too bad, maybe.
So we're coming to you from Canada, right next to oil country, where the oil sands are, the tar sands, the dirty, filthy oil. And guess what, Brian? Jason Kenney, the premier of that province, Alberta, is talking about Netflix all the time. Have you heard that ridiculous discussion?
Yes. No, this has been, in the news, a Bigfoot cartoon on Netflix he's now upset about.
Well, you're not going to believe the dedication that I've had this week, Brian, because I've actually watched part of that ridiculous, terrible cartoon. It's not, I mean, it's a movie that's animated in like the cheapest, sloppiest 3D animation you could possibly imagine. So I
watched part of it
too.
You did? It's god awful.
Wow. Why did you do that?
Same reason you did, because it's in the clean energy news.
What did you think then? I'm curious to know what you think. I didn't think we could be able to have this discussion.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible movie. They're upset in Alberta because it vilifies the fossil fuel industry, because it proposes in the plot of the movie this ridiculous storyline about using a nuclear bomb or a giant bomb to blow up the piece of land to get at the oil. But the kicker to the story is, turns out that was an actual proposal somebody made up in the 1950s or 60s.
Really?
That they were going to set off a thermonuclear bomb underground in Alberta.
Really?
To do that exact thing. So it never actually happened.
Oh, well, I didn't know that part of the story. I'm glad you looked into it.
They're upset about this in Alberta because it is kind of a weird thing that, they're not actually using bombs to blow up the tar sands, but turns out they actually considered it.
I have a clip from the movie.
And let's just make this nice and tight and comfortable for you.
What are you doing?
You hippies are so trusting. It's pathetic. It's why we always bring you down from the inside, punk.
I thought you were one of us.
Oh, sorry to burst your bubble, kid, dude. Yeah, whatever. I'm a hired gun. I go where the money is, and there's always money in big oil.
I don't have any sympathy for Kenny. Do you? I mean, yes, they have. It's set in Alaska for starters. They talk about that constantly. It's set in Alaska, but he didn't like the way the oil industry was treated because they were villains. Well, maybe we should. People who have nuclear weapons should. I don't know. What's a bad guy in a Bond movie have? Missiles, some sort of.
Often, yeah.
The nude bomb. Do you remember the movie The Nude Bomb? I don't know why that came to mind.
Yeah, Maxwell Smart.
Yeah. That was a movie, The Nude Bomb. It made everyone nude. How could you not go see that when you're 7 years old? You know, it's like, wow. Anyway, here's a clip of Kenny ranting about Netflix.
So you can dismiss this as, quotes, merely a kid's show, but it's clear that they developed content designed to defame in the most vicious way possible, in the impressionable minds of kids, the largest industry in the province.
Yeah, so this is his thing. He's in trouble politically, so he's picking a Netflix as an enemy because he's short of enemies, I guess. And their energy fund, they spend $30 million plus a year just what is it called? The Canadian Energy Center. So it's set up to basically anything a hippie says, they'll contradict. And apparently they put out a newsletter every day that nobody knows about. And the YouTube channel sometimes gets like 11 views. I mean, Brian, if you gave me $35 million a year, I think I could get more than 11 views. I mean, I would just make a feature film or something. Pro-oil feature film. I could do, and would get more than, I could put Clooney in it or something. You could hire a star for that. Put myself in it, of course, because I'm vain that way. Yeah, we could make a movie for $35 million bucks a year. I have no sympathy for him. It is attacking oil, and it does make you mad. The oil are really the bad guys in the film, and don't watch it. Whatever you do, people don't watch it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really do any good to vilify the fossil fuel industry because, we're still going to need oil and gas for the next many, many years. So it's probably better if we don't fight, but it's all it does is draw more attention to the oil sands in Alberta, and it's doing the opposite of what Kenny wants it to do.
Yeah, and this is starting to get picked up by major newspapers around the world. I know I think the Independent had it in the UK the other day, and it's just juicy stupidity from Alberta.
It's a terrible movie that would have just faded away had he not mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have watched it, but well, let's move on. Tony Seba at RethinkX has a new study on the levelized cost of electricity. Do you want to explain to the people what the levelized cost of electricity is?
Yes. Well, as usual, I skimmed a couple of articles, so I'm now one of the world's leading experts on LCOE, or levelized cost of electricity. But yeah, this is just a calculation that they make when you're building any kind of a new power plant. So this applies to hydro, nuclear, solar, wind, whatever. You have to account for how much electricity is going to be generated over the lifespan of that power plant. And so you have to make certain assumptions of, okay, we're going to put out this many, megawatts of power, and it's going to be at a certain capacity. Like either the plant's going to be at 100% capacity 24 hours a day, or it's going to be at 80% or 50%. And so Tony has figured out that using the actual data, that the LCOE has been calculated completely wrong for, all of these legacy, plants, coal plants, natural gas. And we know this because you could look at previous estimates for things like coal and then look at the actual data over the last 10 years and realize, oh, yeah, the LCOE was massively guessed to be way, way, way too high.
This is Tony Seba, co-author of Rethinking Energy. For the past 10 years, a financial bubble in conventional energy assets has been gathering steam. Just like the credit rating agencies ignored actual market data in the buildup to the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, mainstream energy analysts have ignored actual market data and have enabled the mispricing and overvaluation of conventional energy assets.
Okay, so when I put solar panels on my roof, I spend, say, $10,000. Let's round it up or round it down. And they're going to last 25 years. They're warranted to last 25 years. So based on my location and the amount of sunlight I have, amount of snow cover I have, they can do a computer model and say, you are going to generate this many megawatts or kilowatts or units of electricity over that time. And this is how much electricity costs now. So this is how much you'll be paying per unit of electricity, which is cheaper than actual electricity, especially as electricity goes up in price over the years.
Yeah, it is a bit confusing, and it's going to be different. Like where we are, it's actually not a market economy for electricity. It's a government monopoly. So this is going to work slightly differently depending on where you are. So, for instance, our utility just spent $750 million on a brand new natural gas power plant for our city. But in order to justify it, they would have probably had to rely on these kind of fudged numbers and pretend that this was going to be something that works out. But in a free market type of situation, that gas plant is going to be quickly overwhelmed by cheaper power and is going to be producing less and less. And so the cost per unit is going to be more. But instead, our power bills are just going to keep going up and up and up because, you know, they've committed to this power plant and they don't have to compete, so they don't have to build anything else.
They built a natural gas peaker plant our building in the western part by Swift Current somewhere, and apparently it's very expensive. And I just know that we are the ratepayers, we're the taxpayers, and we're getting lied to. So I hope this study draws attention to this issue, and I hope that we're not being fudged when political opponents say that, you know, it's not that much. They can actually look at the data and say that these plants are not running at the capacity they claim to be running at, and therefore the cost is even more for coal and fossil fuel burning.
And it also depends on Tony's other big figure, which is he expects solar, wind, and batteries to drop another 70% in cost in the next 10 years. So that's part of this. You have to make that assumption, and you have to be correct in that assumption for all of these other numbers to be correct. But yeah, it seems strange to me when people were committing to these massive natural gas power plants in the year 2020 when they started building it. But I didn't have Tony's data at the time, so I just sort of guessed, oh, that's probably a terrible idea. But now Tony has the numbers to tell us, oh, yeah, that was a terrible idea.
So, Brian, in 2020, China built over 3 times as much new coal power capacity as all other countries in the world combined. Now, keep in mind that coal plants take years to develop. They don't just come online quickly. So these could have been, 8 years ago when they started deciding to build this. And keep in mind that China is expanding rapidly and the electricity demand is insatiable and they cannot keep up. They're building like a new turbine every 2 hours or something, I think, is going online. So there's the equivalent of one large coal plant per week, which is awful. But then they also built more wind farms than the rest of the world combined, one country, China.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag in China just because they need to grow so fast. They're doing both.
A battery manufacturing plant is coming to Quebec.
Yeah, this is a big story. There is now a $100 million investment to bring a new EV battery plant to Quebec. So the Canadian government's put in $50 million and Quebec has put in $50 million. And it's going to be owned by Lion Electric, who we've talked about on the podcast several times before. They're known for their electric school buses. And this is a big project that will have 150 long-term jobs in Quebec.
So what I'd like to point out that I read about was that they're not actually manufacturing cells. This will be a battery assembly plant. So unlike Tesla, who is taking the minerals, rolling them up, and making batteries with them, this is just an assembly plant. So the batteries will have to come from LG or maybe they've stated already where they're coming from, but one of the other battery manufacturers. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we could use a battery manufacturing, like a cell manufacturing plant in Canada.
Yeah, we need to make sure we're not left behind as everything transitions over.
Because we have the minerals. We have everything you're looking for, battery manufacturers. We have your nickel. We have your copper. We have cobalt even. We have lithium. We should be making the batteries. Brian, it's time for our exciting news segment. What do you think?
What do you think?
Brian, what do you think? Kia reveals first images of its upcoming EV6, but it looks a bit like a station wagon. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the look of it. This is based on the Hyundai platform, Hyundai Kia, kind of being the same company. So Hyundai revealed the Ioniq 5 a few weeks ago, and now this is kind of the Kia version of that, the EV6 on the same platform. So they'll be very, very similar vehicles with pretty much the same drivetrain. It's just different styling on top of the same platform. I don't know, look good to me. The Ioniq 5 seems like a good car, so I think they'll both be decent.
It's not too station wagony because people don't like station wagons.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I think there's a niche cool factor now to a station wagon, so you never know.
So they're coming back is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Tesla is lobbying for higher taxes on gas-powered vehicles in the United Kingdom. What do you think?
Well, there's so many different ways to deal with these kinds of issues. I think the role of government is just to kind of nudge things in certain directions. So, it makes sense to put kind of a sin tax onto gasoline vehicles because we want the air to be cleaner. So I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it's certainly one way to do it.
Well, they're saying that gas fuel should be taxed more. Yeah, so that they can pay for the programs. I don't know why they're saying you should do this so you can pay for the program. Maybe they just want the program to be, more stable and more long lasting. Supporting zero.
Yeah, but just like, subsidies for EVs, for people buying EVs, I'm not sure that's the best way to do it. Again, you kind of want to nudge things in different directions. So I've never been entirely sold that EV subsidies are the way to go, but, who knows?
It's working for Norway, taxing gas vehicles and making it, giving you some, free, free parking even sometimes for EVs. And
free parking, free tolls, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's all good. So this has been another edition of What Do You Think?
What do you think?
What else do you have for us this week?
So, what was on the list I gave you?
All kinds of things. Pick up laundry.
Oh, yeah. Microwaves.
Microwaves. UK homes heated by microwaves. I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so this is really just a pilot project at this point, but basically homes are heated by two types of heat, either forced air, which is mostly what we have where we live. You get something hot and then you blow it with a fan through your house. The other is a boiler where you heat up water and it goes through radiators and radiates that way. So the creators of the world's first microwave-powered boiler have said that it could provide a straightforward zero-emission replacement for gas boilers in the UK. So normally with a gas boiler, you heat it up with natural gas, and that heats the water and sends it through the house. But turns out you can do the same thing with microwaves. Like it's basically like a microwave oven that's going to heat up the water and then send that through the home. So this is just a pilot project at this point, but it is possibly a way to convert all of these gas boilers to electric and have them go, zero emission.
Brian, that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. I wonder what the energy efficiency of that is, and if I should get one for my home.
Yeah, so there is some numbers about that. The boiler is 84% efficient in converting electricity into hot water, and another 12% of the waste heat is recycled, giving a total efficiency of 96%.
Oh, snap. That is pretty good for electricity heating water. I mean, that's got to be better than a heat pump, isn't it?
Yeah, possibly. Of course, like where we live, it's so damn cold. It's, a lot colder than the UK. So, it could turn into a pretty massive electricity bill where we are. But yeah, heat pumps could be a massive bill too. But it's a way to make use of the existing infrastructure of the house. If it's already wired for a boiler, then,
It's freaky, though.
Then you can just replace it with a microwave.
It's freaky to think a microwave could be, microwaves don't last that long. Microwave ovens only last a few years, and you're only using them for a minute here and a couple of popcorn minutes there and potato minute there.
Yeah, well, presumably this is a more robust kind of technology.
Microwaves still scare me. Do you stand in front of your microwave when you're cooking?
Yeah, no, I try and keep it.
The metal plate in your forehead could be affected, if I'm correct. That's interesting. We'll have to follow that. I guess the idea, of course, is that wind and solar and battery is going to be so cheap in the next decade that we should be able to heat anything, no matter how inefficient it is. I imagine, they say when you're heating with just like putting a positive and negative wire together, like a toaster, like inductive heating, I believe that's called. That's what I have in the Nissan Leaf.
Resistive?
Resistive heating. And you use a lot of electricity, but you put a heat pump in a car and it uses less electricity, which is something you're aware of, being preheat pump Tesla Model 3 owner. Yeah, so Brian, the Yukon has rebates for electric snowmobiles and all kinds of cool things. Let me read you the list. The Yukon is a territory of Canada up north. There's not very many people there. But yeah, they're feeling the effects of climate change and they're doing some serious things. Wow, they even have one for importing a used zero-emission vehicle. That gets my heart pumping. I love that. You could import a car from the States off lease and get a rebate for it. And everybody should be driving electric up there. And that would just prove that they work in cold weather. Snowmobiles, electric snowmobiles. I don't even think they're on the market yet, are they? Because why would they have rebates?
There's got to be one somewhere. There's a Canadian company, Taiga, that's making them. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're actually out yet though.
They must be expensive and in small volumes. Electric motorcycles, which aren't exactly flooding the streets yet, but they are out. In fact, I think Harley Davidson is looking at as we talked about it in the previous episodes, looking at expanding their range, and electric bicycles and charging stations. 3,000 to 5,000 back on qualifying vehicles. Why can't everyone do that? They even have...
Yeah, and also, too, I'll add that Prince Edward Island has also announced an electric vehicle rebate program, too. So more and more provinces are getting in on that.
So used vehicles is only $1,500, but I mean, I paid $10,000 for my Leaf, so that would be like 15%, I believe, if you do the math. That's not insignificant. And you can probably find, as time goes on, more and more vehicles in that price range. It was hard for me. I had to wait years for that to happen. So level 2 electric chargers, you can get them installed at your home, your commercial business, your institutional workplace, and multi-residence places. $2,500 back on a zero-emission snowmobile, and $2,000 back on electric motorcycles. And here's a sweet deal. $750 off the purchase of a qualifying electric bicycle, and up to $1,500 if you purchase a cargo style. This is progressive, man, is it not?
Yeah,
that's
great.
We would sure love to see that here and in other places. And there's only 10 people up there to take advantage of it, though. I don't know what the population is. It's like, what, 80,000 or something of the whole?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
I was just guessing. So I don't know. Anyway, coming up later, we have the lightning round where we're going to clean up all the extra headlines of the week. I'm a little perturbed by this. Toyota is lobbying the U.S. government and its increasingly delusional effort to slow down electric vehicles, according to Electric. It says, if we make dramatic progress in electrification, it will require overcoming tremendous challenges, including refueling infrastructure, which is installing an electrical outlet, battery availability, consumer acceptance. What did we talk about surveys? Everybody wants an electric vehicle, like 70%, even in Canada. And we're backwards. We're not Europe. Consumer acceptance and affordability. And we know what's happening with affordability. They're coming down. Price parity as early as 2024. And for multiple classes of cars. Certainly that is BS. I call BS. Brian Stockton.
Yeah, it makes one worried about the future health of Toyota because they are clearly way, way behind in this.
They clearly don't give a crap. They clearly don't want this to happen if they had their druthers. But the fact is that people are banning combustion engines around the world in the different jurisdictions almost weekly. What are they going to do? They better be working on it. And I'd say they're the most, well, I don't know about Honda, but I'd say they're probably one of the most reluctant manufacturers to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future. Because fuel cell is not going to happen. It's not for cars. Brian, I had some feedback. It says, hi, guys. So my neighbor is interested in getting an electric ATV, which I'm not too familiar with. She would like to buy used to save money. Well, who wouldn't? But is worried that there won't be much useful life in the battery left. So she has battery concerns. How long do these sorts of batteries last? Cheers, Paul from Toronto.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the battery in an ATV is maybe not as well cared for as in a car. I don't know if it would have as an extensive a battery management system as a car would. So you would obviously just have to, I don't know, check it out, test it, see if there's a range meter on the thing.
Yeah, I suppose you could take it to a battery shop. Like we have a couple battery places. They could stick a voltmeter on it or something and just tell you that what it should be and what sort of the capacity, the state of health is on the battery. I don't know. Generally speaking, these things have unregulated, unmanaged cells have about 800 cycle life. So that's charging from 0 to 100 on lithium batteries. My guess is that ATVs aren't used that frequently. I mean, you might have a farm where you're using, it depends on the application. I suppose if you're using it to run certain errands around a farm every day in the summertime, that's different. But if you're using it recreationally, you're not using it necessarily every day. And there could be some good, basically it's hard to tell. I think it's hard to tell without doing extensive research yourself and then testing the battery. But I guess you could also ask, what is the rated range of the battery right now or operational time? And then just take it out for a ride and see how it does and see how much battery's left after, say, a half an hour or an hour. Say it's rated for 2 hours from the factory. You get out there and you drive it for half an hour and it uses 25% of the battery, then you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, you should be able to get a pretty good estimate if you use 25% or 50%. You'll have a pretty good idea.
Now, neither Brian and I know much about electric ATVs, but if you do, our listening public, then we would sure like to hear from you. Email us at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And don't forget, we're on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod on Twitter, and our YouTube channel, which does not have a direct link. You'll have to just check that out on our Twitter page. So yeah, there's different ways to get a hold of us, as well as speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow, where you can leave us a voicemail message. So if you know anything about ATVs or have any advice for Paul and Paul's neighbor who wants to buy an electric ATV, we didn't see a rebate for that. That's one thing we didn't see the rebate for in Yukon is ATVs.
Yeah, no one knows they exist.
Well, Brian, it's time for the ever-popular lightning round.
The Clean Energy Show Lightning Round.
This is where we clean up the headlines from the past week that got ignored. We'll go through them quickly. Tesla has stopped taking orders for the Powerwall unless it has solar panels with it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they've had difficulty keeping up with demand on the Powerwall, which is their home battery. And they've done things like raise the price and to try and stop people from ordering them. But yeah, so now they've limited Powerwall purchases to people who are also purchasing solar. And I'm assuming it's because they just can't keep up with demand.
By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day, Brian.
And to you.
And I see you're not wearing green. Just because it's a pandemic. My underwear is green. I don't want to show you, but you'll just have to take my words for it. And there's a speck of green in my socks. Other than that, I'm not, my kids aren't wearing green either. They're going to be mad. My daughter's going to be mad. She's going to come home from school and say, no one told me it was St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's wearing green. So if you're sober and listening to our show, happy St. Patrick's Day to you during the pandemic. Happy pandemic St. Patrick's Day. BMW unveiled today the Bmw i4, its all-new electric vehicle, and confirmed that it's going to have up to 300 miles of range, 480 kilometers, based on the EPA standard. Your thoughts? Because BMW had an interesting car that Larry David drives in his show, his character drives, the i3. It's an odd-looking car. I always thought they were kind of cool. The thing that scared me about those, because I did look at them as a used vehicle because they've been around for a while, is that they're carbon fiber. So if you nick the front fender, it's like, $28,000 to replace the carbon fiber piece from the front end of the car or something like that. That's what scared me.
Yeah, but isn't that the case with any car? It seems like any kind of minor dent now is billions of dollars to fix.
Yes, it was. I think it was $12,000 for when we hit a deer.
Yeah,
and it was like a headlight. It was $1,200 by itself. I remember going to Canadian Tire buying a headlight for $20. That was my regular thing. Headlight burned out, $20. You go to Canadian Tire. Somebody shoots it with a gun. That's never happened, but let's say it did. Yeah, that would happen. So the next generation Ford Transit Custom Ford Transit is to get an all-electric version in 2023. And I would say, Brian, that this looks like a minivan instead of a boxy thing. These are things that are built on not van platforms, not truck platforms, but car platforms. So they're not carrying a lot of weight. They're like carrying light parcels, like, say, a mail delivery or something that's not too heavy, but has lots of cargo space. So 2023, Ford will come out with a version of that. There's lots of those flying around on the street for businesses. This is a good business vehicle for whatever you have. So I don't know. That's good. Yes.
Yeah, I like the Ford Transit. An electric version makes a lot of sense.
The Nissan Leaf battery packs are ending up in robots to help build electric cars. That's one of the interesting uses for Nissan Leaf batteries, because they've been around for so long, you're starting to see reuse of them.
Yeah, nothing to add, but obviously make use of the batteries. That's great.
I always thought that it was cool when they did, the Nissan Leaf, most battery packs are made up of battery modules. Like, they break it down into modules. It's not just one big massive thing. So you could take a module out, looks like an oversized hard drive, and that can power a street light on a mountain with a solar panel, because there's no electricity, because they can't go through. It's in an isolated place, and there's no way to put the lines in cheaply. So I thought that was a cool use for them. Anyway, former Iceland president has said that any country can now become an energy player. That is the nature of renewable energy, and it's frustrating here because we don't want to talk about it when we have fossil energy. We don't want to talk about how great of an energy player we can be in other energies, because anybody can. And that's going to screw us, Brian, because not everybody can be an oil player, right? We're restricted to a certain number of countries.
Right, but that brings us back to the Tony Seba thing that we were talking about earlier. So our neighboring province, Manitoba, is something like 97% hydroelectric power. So they've got a really clean grid, and it's a fairly low-cost grid. It's the cost to the consumer is quite low. But Tony's numbers show that even hydro, even clean sources are being, overpriced and overvalued. And it's really just because the coming onslaught of solar, wind, and batteries is just going to be so cheap that hydro is going to seem expensive soon.
That really jumped out at me, that the existing hydro, I mean, how much does it cost?
Yeah.
You just have to buy turbines. You have to replace the turbines and maintain them. I don't understand where the big costs are there. But that really jumped out at me. The fact that clean energy, the new technologies are replacing, outcompeting even existing hydro. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, and again, anybody planning new hydro projects, and I believe there are always some in the works, again, they're overvaluing the future value of it because it's, solar, wind, and batteries will be cheaper. So,
yeah, I was looking at a chart from Bloomberg New Energy Finance, and in 2017, their predictions for 2030, we've already surpassed them. that I've always been critical of them, but they always claim that we're more progressive than everybody else with our, more aggressive with our battery pricing. They're constantly correcting themselves, and at least they admit that. So there's plans for Porsche fast charging stations with lounge area, like upscale lounge areas for people who can afford a Porsche. They don't want to sit on a folding chair in a cold place. They want luxury if they're charging. So yeah, they're playing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so that's going to be in Europe. They're going to have these upscale Porsche charging lounges, I guess. I mean, that's more expensive than what we were talking about earlier, like just putting up a few chargers in a parking lot. It's not a huge expense, and that is probably fairly easy to do. But I don't know, are there enough Porsche users in Europe to justify the cost of that? That seems a bit riskier.
Well, maybe they're getting, Porsche is fairly committed to electrifying a lot of their models. Maybe because you're paying so much for a Porsche. It's like $200,000. It's twice as much as a Tesla.
Yeah. And they're part of the Volkswagen group, so maybe they'll be available to everybody, not just Porsches. I don't know.
The upper level trims of the Volkswagens. If you buy the highest end trim, you can go
That's
to the
right.
lounge.
They can turn the peasants away.
And if you're looking for that article, it's actually in The Guardian about the Netflix dispute with the oil lobbyists in Alberta. The name of the headline is Canadian Lobby Group Attacks Netflix Children's Film for Anti-Oil Propaganda.
Yeah, and the one that I read was on the CBC, and that one had the good information about the nuclear bomb that was proposed for Alberta back in the 50s.
Oh, man,
so
I missed
you could
that.
Look for that one
is
too
such
on
a
the
cool
CBC.
anecdote. I'm so glad you knew that. So the U.S.
And I have another one to add, which is there's a Dr. Seuss book called, I think it's The Lorax. And this was brought up as well in an article I read because it's against deforestation. Like the story has something to do with cutting down trees. And there was somebody like the logging industry in California or something complained about the Dr. Seuss book way back it was like the 70s or something, that this book vilifies the logging industry. But like this instance, it just makes them look like idiots and, brings more attention to it.
Oh, Lucid Air. This is late breaking news, Brian. Late breaking news. That's not going to be interesting to anybody but me. Lucid Air. Lucid Air will be the world's first vehicle to integrate Dolby Atmos. You know how I'm a big Dolby Atmos fan. Big on the Dolby Atmos.
Well, you and I are the only two people I know who actually have Dolby Atmos systems in our home.
It's wonderful.
It's pretty cool. But, actually driving around and having sound come out of the ceiling, which is what Atmos is. It adds extra channels of sound that are supposed to be above you. I guess that'd be cool, but it's most cool if you're watching a movie, and so it depends on how often you're going to watch a movie.
Not true, Mr. Stockton, because I had a free 2-week trial for Tidal, the premium sound music service, and they have some Atmos content. Not a lot, but I could play with it. I don't think Atmos is going to take off. The idea of Atmos is, yes, there's speakers above you, but it's not like just adding more speakers to a surround sound. It's to immerse you, like it's a 3D listening experience. I really notice the difference in watching a movie. In fact, I look for movies in Atmos now, and they're prevalent on Disney and their series on Disney Plus and on iTunes. A lot of movies in Atmos are available on iTunes, which is why I get them there, and some Netflix stuff.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. It is a fun thing. But yeah, well, in a car, sure. If my car had that, I'd want that.
Well, I'd listen
sure.
to that just to see what it was like. I don't. It's. I guess it's a gimmick. It's but it made a headline on Electric. I can imagine everyone's complaining about it in the comment section. But so. Yeah, from reimagined classics to today's biggest chart-topping hits, Dolby Atmos music is positively embraced and viewed by the music community as one of the most industry's biggest paradigm shifts in the past 50 years. Well, that's probably a stretch, but I do know that I have read interviews with people in the music industry are quite impressed with hearing their stuff in Atmos because it is cool, and it's not terribly gimmicky, but it definitely goes beyond stereo, and it's cool. But I mean, most people I guess you can listen to Dolby Atmos headphones now. I've never successfully done that. Have you? Like,
no, that would be nice though.
And they say that we're all the premium streaming or the streaming services like Netflix, like Spotify, and Apple Music. Like Apple Music in Canada, you can pay for premium sound quality, like uncompressed sound. So they're not MP3s. They're probably like FLAC streaming of the actual CD. So then, but they're also adding some Atmos content on those premium services as well. So yeah, no, my Android phone says you can get Atmos on headphones, but I've tried it and it's like, I don't, I didn't really, I tried some actual content and it didn't do anything for me, but it's supposed to.
Maybe
it's
someday.
It's supposed to. That's what bothers me. It's supposed to. Okay, so the Tesla Model Y driver crashed into another white semi and went right underneath it. Do you have any thoughts on that? They claim already that the police said wasn't on autopilot, but they're getting investigated, which doesn't seem fair because it's not an autopilot system. It's the driver who's supposed to be ultimately responsible. It's like investigating your cruise control every time there's an accident to blame that, but it seems unfair.
Yeah, Tesla's getting extra scrutiny, but it's because they're at the cutting edge, I assume. So, they probably deserve a little bit of extra scrutiny, but it's true. It's a type of system where the driver is still supposed to be in control. So it really shouldn't be treated, that much differently from any other car accident.
Yeah, I guess the only justification that I can see is that if they wanted to study why or if people are overly dependent on it so that they can issue warnings or guidance or restrictions that say it has to follow your eyes. And I know GM follows your eyes and tests your eyes, and there is a camera there, right? Do you have the camera there for your eyes, or at least the potential? Yeah,
so Tesla has now activated the interior camera, which is above the rearview mirror on the inside of the car. And they apparently have been using that now to monitor drivers who are using the full self-driving beta improperly, that they're not paying full attention. So they have, only recently started using that camera, and they are apparently using it to, kick people off if they're not paying enough attention.
So are you paying extra attention now? Because you want to be part of that program when it comes to Canada. For our show, if nothing else.
I'm waiting for that button to appear someday on the thing. Yeah, I'm driving the way I normally am. So
drunk
hopefully
and
my driving
half
record
asleep and earpod in one ear and AirPod in one ear.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, it's been lots of fun. This has been another edition, the St. Patrick's Day edition of the Clean Energy Show. We'll be back next week with the latest news in clean energy and transportation, and I hope to talk to you then.
Yeah, see you next week.